experience. I think it's very important for us as Muslims to really know how he used to deal with people. Exactly. And first of all, if we have to look at the sunnah of relationships in Islam, can we examine its goals and guidelines?
Thank you. Aisatu, thank you very much. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وصلى الله وسلم على سيدنا ونبينا محمد خير خلق الله وعلى آله وصحابته ومن نهج نهجهم إلى يوم الدين. أيها المشاهدون الكرام، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام.
رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. I said to thank you again. I think the topic today is very much linked to the previous one, because we are still celebrating, we are still remembering, remembering Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He is the fountainhead and the embodiment of all the good virtues
that we can think of in this world.
Yes, and sometimes it's very important that we relate to our time, we relate to our social and economic realities, because he gave the example, the best example to mankind of everything. You've just quoted the verse which is the basis of what we call relationships. Whether that relationship is private or public, the basis of that relationship is لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. Allah is telling us that you have the best example, or you have in the Prophet the best role model. You have the best role model in the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The role model in making sure that you socialize. In role model in making sure that when you live with any individual, they will love you.
Definitely.
They will prefer being with you than not with you. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is told to be the role model not only just at a normal level but at the highest level, because وَإِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ. So this is the basis of the sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, the way, that is why the pious men and women from the beginning of the universe up to today, they are seeking him. He is the one sought by everybody. The way he dressed, the way he lived his life with the family, you know, the smell he enjoyed, the way he slept, the way he people are seeking to know exactly every bit of his life to be able to emulate him, because he's the best example. Meaning, if you need a best example, try to know the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or you know one who knows him. The best example and the safest is to investigate him, to know him, to read him, and make sure that where he put his step, you also put your step.
Because he was indeed a model of perfection.
Model of perfection. Even if you cannot, but you approximate perfection. This is now the basis of the sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now sunnah, as you mentioned about the guidelines, you see sunnah is very important that before we go to the goals of the relationships, we know exactly what sunnah is all about. You see, sunnah ayasatu is the path, or at least is what is authentically received from the Prophet, either in action or his utterances, verbal utterances, or his approvals, or his even intentions. So whatever is authentically received from the Prophet, that he has said it, that is sunnah. Or he acted upon it, that is sunnah. Or he approved it, he see people or witness an individual acting in a particular manner, and he did not disapprove it, meaning he approved of it, then that is also what we call sunnah of approval. Or he just intended, he said, okay, just like the Ashura, he informed them that I am now fasting the 10th, but if I leave to witness next year, I would leave, I would fast the 9th. That was intention, but he could not because Allah took him to him, he demised before that year. But then it became sunnah, his intention, even though he didn't do it. Binyati. His intention became sunnah. So this is the one that we have to know, and the best example that you will never lose if you do anything because of him and if you sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Then sunnah is like that, is what is authentically received from him. Now, the sunnah has a number of types. Of course, those types we have just mentioned is about the utterances and also the actions and also the approvals and also the intentions. Now, his lifetime, Aisatu, all is sunnah. You see, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was sent when he was 40. Now, even before he was sent, he perfected the art of relationships. You see, when he lived with people, regardless of age, regardless of color, regardless of qualification, regardless of, you had to love him. People who lived with him, even before he was sent, they have to love him. Because of, he was approachable. He would smile. He would not overreact. He would give benefit of the doubt. He would forgive. You see, when you live with people like that, you cannot but to love them.
Exactly. You will not have any other choice.
But to love them. Why? Because even if you don't love them, the surrounding will tell you you are crazy.
Definitely.
There are people, I say too, that whose name you cannot tarnish. Why? Because even though you try to fabricate, to tarnish their image, the surrounding, the environment will tell you, no, it's not true. You go to, I said, you see this guy? I said, I don't think.
This is my first time of hearing such a thing.
Such a thing. So the Prophet was somebody who was liked by everybody. Just by, you just see him and you like him. Why? Because he internalized all these good virtues. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there was that embodiment. Now his sunnah, his whole life was a sunnah. That is why somebody like Abu Huraira would just watch him. He spent about only 3 years with the Prophet, but he narrated most of the hadiths. Why? Because he was so attached to him.
Very close to him.
Yes. Wherever he sits, Abu Huraira will sit. He would wake up, he would stand up, Abu Huraira will stand up. He will go that way, he will go that way. He will sit and then he will collect his shoes and wait for him. You know, watching him, his movements, the way his wrinkles, the way he do whatever.
Monitoring him on daily basis.
And this is what we should do, because every action of him is something that we should emulate. So then you can see that his whole entire life is sunnah, I told you. The Prophet ﷺ sunnah is not just the way he lived with his family, not just the way he dressed, not just the way he prayed and fasted, but the way he prioritized, the way he put the priorities is very, very important, I said. Sometimes people just make a mistake of course, doing worships, but not knowing which one comes first. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam informed us that, you know, a man come to him and said, when is the last day? The Prophet said,
that's a good one.
what have you prepared for the last day? Look at the answer. The Prophet just didn't tell him, I don't know. Or when is the last day? Of course, the man come for guidance. He wanted to know from the Prophet. Then he said, when is the last day? The Prophet said, what did you prepare for the last day?
In other words, you must be ready.
You must be ready, meaning there is a priority.
Yes.
Make sure that you know your priority. The priority is not just to ask people when, but make sure that now you listen to the commandments of Allah and do what is going to help you in the last day.
What is expected of you.
What is expected of you. So this is the science of priority that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So now, of course, his sunnah is immutable, but it's impossible for any individual to emulate him perfectly. That is why you do this sunnah and you leave that one. You do this sunnah and you leave that one. And there was no time when any companions